The NFL has had several big trades over the past few years, and in today's video we are going to be going back and grading several of the other big trades that we did not get into on Friday in today's video. There were several comments regarding, well, what about grades on this trade or that trade, and most notably the Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Steelers trade, and we are going to dive into that one and a couple of others, so without further ado, let's begin. And the Minkah trade was mentioned in the intro, so why not go ahead and discuss the Minkah trade, and we will start from the Miami Dolphins side and why they had any incentive to trade him in the first place. And for everything that has taken place over the past few months, with former Dolphins coach Brian Flores and him saying owner Stephen Ross said allegedly he would pay him $100,000 per loss so they could get the number 1 overall pick, which would have equated to them getting Joe Burrow and everything along these lines, not the racial allegations part. Minkah was traded after the Dolphins lost 2 games to start the 2019 season, in which they lost to the Ravens by 49 points and the Patriots by 43 points, in which they were shut out both at home. The shutout came in the Patriots game, to be clear. And Minkah played at Alabama and won a national championship during his time there, and not surprisingly, was not thrilled with the losing and how bad, for lack of a better word, they were getting their ass beat at that. Minkah reportedly requested a trade, and the Dolphins sent him a 2020 4th and a 2021 7th round pick for a 1 and a 5 in 2020 and a 2021 6th. And because the Dolphins were horrible as a franchise at the time, they undervalued one of their vital assets that they had, and we give this grade for Miami a C+. Now, they did get a first round pick, but I do believe they could have received at least a 2 back in addition to the first, and the results Minkah has had in Pittsburgh are undeniable, as he is currently a 2-time first-team All-Pro player, and could very well add to that. Now, as for Pittsburgh, they traded essentially a first-round pick for a player who, in what would have been his rookie season, follow what I'm saying here, the 2020 first-round pick would have been that player's rookie season. Minkah was a first-team All-Pro player that year, and the year that they traded for him in 2019, so not bad for a rookie, right? Minkah has become a fan favorite and is one of their starting safeties for a while, and I say the term for the next decade quite a lot, but he'll be a starter for a while, and we can all agree on that. Sure, they gave a couple of other picks, but they also received a few back, and this trade for Pittsburgh is an easy A+. And to be honest, I'm surprised they haven't traded any more of their first or even second round picks since, given the results they've had with Minkah. But Pittsburgh absolutely nailed this trade and have a player in their secondary, and a good one at that, for quite some time. And we never did formally discuss the Rams and Lions trade, which sent Matt Stafford from the Motor City to the City of Angels, and all the Rams did in their first season with Stafford as their quarterback was win the Super Bowl. For the Rams side, it's pretty obvious. You give up a quarterback who helped lead your team to a lot of success, but couldn't quite get the job finished in Jared Goff, as he led them to a few playoff wins and ultimately a Super Bowl appearance back in Super Bowl 53, but could not get over the final hump. It was pretty obvious. Thank you for your contributions in your 5 years here, Jared, but this is a business and we have to move on. And while the Rams did give up 2 extra first-round picks to do so, ask Les Snead or Sean McVay if they cared about those picks when they were holding up the Lombardi in SoFi Stadium a few months ago. The picks mean squat if you win it all, and for this, the Rams have an A+. Period. Whatever happens from here on out, whether Stafford gets a season-ending injury this year early on, yes, that would obviously be unfortunate, we don't wish that, but this trade is already validated by the Super Bowl win. Now, as for Detroit, as far as I'm concerned, and I interact with a lot of Lions fans, I haven't seen a Lions fan complain. I'm sure at least 1 or 2 did, but I haven't seen any complain about this trade because they understand business is business, and Stafford gave absolutely everything he had to their franchise, and the throw with the shoulder injury early in his career that we've all seen on Mic'd Up to win the game is one of countless examples. He was also a great leader in the community, and they received 2 first-round picks in addition to a starting quarterback. And Jared Goff certainly did not have favorable conditions in his only year starting for the Lions so far, but Goff also isn't the player Stafford is. They're clearly a rebuilding team, and for them to get at minimum 2 top 32 picks, and the likelihood that one will be a top 30 pick, because I don't think the Rams are going to go back-to-back this year, is an A+ for both sides. And next we are going to discuss the Carson Wentz trade, which sent him from Philadelphia to Indianapolis, and Indy sent Philly a 2021 third-round pick and a 2022 conditional second-round pick, which was dependent upon Carson playing 75% of the snaps Indy took as an offense in 2021. If he did, it became a first-round pick, and if he didn't, it stayed a second. And Philly had 3 first-round picks, and this pick is now in the hands of the New Orleans Saints with the 16th overall selection. For Philly, while the results in the post-Carson Wentz era have not been great so far, as they made the playoffs and were smoked by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this was a great trade for them, as they got a player off of their team whose future was a very gray area, and they received a first-round pick due to the positional value. And they have parlayed this first-round pick into a future one in what is expected to be a much better draft class in 2023 than the draft in a couple of weeks. Now, I don't think Jalen Hurts is the answer either personally, but to get this value for Carson in a trade is an easy A+. For Indy, this was a huge risk, huge reward scenario, and unfortunately it did not pan out. But I don't think this was that bad of a trade for them, not because it didn't work out, but because they still have several good players on this team, and they knew they were never going to be a bottom-of-the-barrel team in the NFL. And as I make this next statement, they were never going to be the worst team in their division, and I realize they lost to the Jags in the final game of the year, but they were never going to be that bad over the course of a 17-game season. Now, I do believe if they beat Jacksonville in Week 18, Carson is still a Colt. For the risk-reward here, I don't give this an F, because if they hit on Carson, then they gave up pennies on the dollar for a franchise quarterback while never truly bottoming out like we've seen several franchises do. Unfortunately, he was not the franchise quarterback they hoped for, and this was a gamble that I would have also made if I were in Chris Ballard, the Colts GM, if I were in his shoes, and a year later for Indy, we give this a C. And next, we will dive into the Raiders trade with Khalil Mack going to the Bears, who, as we know now, is a Los Angeles Charger. And you take a look back at this trade and think, wow, the Raiders got 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick for a player who, I don't want to say only, because 4 years is a long time, but for 2 first-round picks, spent 4 years in Chicago, then was dealt to the Chargers. So the Bears at the time were looking at acquiring Mack in a way like the Rams did with Stafford a year ago, or even Jalen Ramsey before that. I loved the thought process where we have a second-year quarterback in Mitch Trubisky who showed strides in 2017, and a player who, by the way, made the 2018 Pro Bowl, and we think we need one piece, and we're going to be heavy Super Bowl contenders, and for a while at that. And unfortunately, the double doink game against the Eagles sent the whole franchise really in a downward spiral that you could argue they are still very much in, and the 2018 season was the peak for that era of the Chicago Bears. They did make the playoffs in 2020 and lost by double digits in New Orleans, in a game that was never close, and the final score was something like 21-9, and Jimmy Graham scored as time expired, and it was a 3-score game for much of the game, and it was just a bad day for the Bears. And sure, Khalil was a great player for them, but how do you grade this trade when it was meant for a Super Bowl push and for a team that made 2 playoff appearances in 4 years, with one of them that can honestly be argued as being one of the worst playoff teams over the past decade? To me, the concept at the time was an A+, but the results for a medley of reasons are a C. And not every trade is an A+ or F pass-fail grade, and this is a perfect example. In 2018, the Bears defense was extremely fun to watch, and for parts of 2019 as well, and it started with both Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks. They made opposing offenses frustrated as hell, and many times at that. And as for the Raiders, yes, they received 2 first-round picks and a third, but when looking back at this trade, it's not enough to just say, okay, great, thank you for the picks, and we'll move on from here. You have to hit on these picks. And please comment your thoughts below on this one, whether or not you think Josh Jacobs is a hit of a first-round pick. I certainly don't think it's a miss, but I'm not ecstatic about Jacobs and screaming with utter joy inside thinking about him on my favorite team if I'm a Raiders fan. And the other pick was used on corner Damon Arnett, and you guys know my thoughts on him. I wasn't a fan at all prior to the video of him with a gun that came out and what ultimately led to his release, release, and I thought he was a bust already before that. So you get those two, plus the third round pick, which was receiver Bryan Edwards from South Carolina, for Khalil Mack and tight end Cole Kmet. Again, for the Raiders to get 2 first-round picks and a third while sending Khalil and a second-round pick is an A+, because it was clear they were not going to pay him in 2018, and if they had any intention, they would have. But the picks were most definitely a strikeout on Arnett, and maybe a single in the gap for baseball fans for Jacobs, where maybe you push it to a double. I mean, it's certainly not a home run by any means, and Edwards entering 2021 was everyone's sleeper receiver that was going to break out and be the next 12 or 1300 yard receiver, but never did. So 4 years later, for the Raiders, a team that had as many playoff wins during the same period as the Bears did, we give this a C. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, now's the time I ask you to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as we recently hit 39,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you guys enough for the support. Now, until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.